Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HSV Liberty watching the massive alien space station grow larger through the view screen. The structure was enormous, bigger than any human city, with spiraling towers and glowing sections that stretched for miles in every direction. After 3 years of careful negotiations, humanity was finally about to join the Galactic Council as an official member species. Dr. Amanda Clark adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform and checked her notes one final time. As Earth's first ambassador to the galactic community, she carried the hopes and dreams of 8 billion humans on her shoulders. The past 3 years had been challenging but rewarding. Earth had shared its technology, art, and culture with dozens of alien species. They had even provided military support when Council worlds were attacked by space pirates. Ambassador, we're receiving docking clearance from Council control, reported Lieutenant Danny Kim from the communications station. His voice carried the same excitement that filled everyone aboard the Liberty. Today was supposed to be the day that changed everything for humanity. The docking process took nearly an hour, as the Liberty was guided through the station's complex maze of docking bays. The station housed representatives from over 200 different species, making it the political center of the galaxy. Ambassador Clark had visited twice before during the negotiation process, but the sight of so many different alien beings still amazed her. Chancellor Zexthul of the ancient Vorthan race greeted them at the airlock. The Chancellor was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large black eyes that seemed to see everything. He had been polite during previous meetings, though Clark always sensed something cold beneath his diplomatic smile. "Welcome back, Ambassador Clark," the Chancellor said in perfect English. The Vorthans had been among the first species to master human languages. The Council is eager to conclude our discussions today. General Vorth of the militaristic Krex accompanied the Chancellor. The Krex looked like upright lizards covered in thick scales, and Vorth was particularly large even for his species. His yellow eyes studied the human delegation with what looked like hunger rather than friendship. They walked through corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. Clark recognized some species from her previous visits, but many were new to her. The diversity was breathtaking, yet she noticed how many of the aliens stared at the humans with expressions she couldn't quite read. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seating for thousands of delegates. The human section was small, just 20 seats in a corner area that seemed deliberately isolated from the main floor. Clark had always wondered why humanity was given such a minor position, but the council had explained it was traditional for new species. Chancellor Zexthul called the session to order with a series of electronic tones that hurt human ears. The translation devices everyone wore struggled with some of the more complex alien languages, creating a constant background hum of electronic voices. Today we conclude our evaluation of the human application for council membership, the Chancellor announced. His words echoed throughout the chamber, and Clark felt her heart racing with anticipation. But something was wrong. The Chancellor's tone was different from previous sessions, colder and more formal. Around the chamber, alien delegates were looking at the human section with expressions that ranged from pity to amusement. A few seemed genuinely uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact entirely. After careful consideration and extensive evaluation, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the species known as humanity, the Chancellor continued. Clark gripped her chair, suddenly afraid of what was coming next. The evaluation has revealed that humans possess aggressive tendencies that make them unsuitable for peaceful galactic society. Their history of warfare, their rapid technological development, and their unpredictable nature present unacceptable risks to Council stability. The words hit Clark like a physical blow. Around her, the other human delegates sat in stunned silence. This wasn't what they had expected. 3 years of cooperation, of sharing, of proving their worth, and this was the result. Therefore, the Chancellor continued, the Council has voted to place the Sol system under protective quarantine. This measure will remain in effect indefinitely to ensure both human safety and galactic security. The chamber erupted in electronic chatter as hundreds of alien species discussed the decision. Clark stood up, her legs shaking with shock and anger. "This is outrageous," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "Humanity has done everything asked of us. We've shared our technology, provided military assistance, and proven our commitment to peace." Chancellor Zexthol's expression didn't change. "The decision is final, Ambassador. Enforcement fleets are already moving into position around your system. Any attempt to leave Sol space will be considered an act of aggression." It was then that a small, bird-like alien approached Clark's section. The being belonged to the Altarian species, one of the few races that had seemed genuinely friendly during the negotiations. His name was Kethvar, and he had often spoken privately with Clark about human culture. "Ambassador," Kethvar whispered urgently, "you must leave immediately. This is worse than it appears." Clark leaned down to hear him better. "What do you mean?" "The quarantine is just the beginning," he said, glancing nervously around the chamber. "The Council has already divided up your world's resources among themselves. The Kreks want your military technology, the Vorthans claim your rare minerals, and the hegemony has reserved your agricultural systems. They plan to wait until your civilization weakens from isolation, then move in as liberators." The full horror of the situation crashed over Clark. This had never been about evaluation or membership. The entire process had been designed to gather intelligence about Earth's defenses, population centers, and resources. Humanity had been played for fools, and now they were about to pay the ultimate price. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through her communicator. "Ambassador, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the system. Council enforcement ships are taking positions around all the jump points. We need to leave now." Clark looked around the chamber one final time. Hundreds of alien species watched her with expressions ranging from indifference to satisfaction. These beings had spent 3 years pretending to consider humanity as equals while planning their conquest. "Thank you," she whispered to Kethvar, then spoke louder to her delegation. "We're leaving." The walk back to the Liberty felt like a funeral march. Human diplomats who had spent years building relationships with alien species now saw the truth. Behind every friendly gesture, they had been gathering intelligence while pretending friendship. As the Liberty undocked and began its journey back toward the jump point, Clark watched the Council station shrink in the distance. Behind them, she could see the massive shapes of alien warships beginning to move. The trap was closing, but somehow they had to warn Earth. The journey home would take weeks, but Clark knew that every day of delay meant more alien ships moving into position around Sol. Humanity was about to face the greatest challenge in its history, and they would face it alone against an entire galaxy that had already decided their fate. 6 months had passed since the Liberty's desperate escape from the Council station, and Earth now existed in a bubble of forced isolation. The alien blockade stretched across the outer edges of the Sol system like a massive net made of steel and energy. 12 different species contributed ships to the enforcement fleet, creating a wall that no human vessel could penetrate. President Lisa Carter stood in the Oval Office looking at reports that painted a grim picture of humanity's situation. Supply shortages of rare materials needed for advanced technology were beginning to affect everything from medical equipment to spacecraft manufacturing. The global economy was struggling as interstellar trade routes that had opened just 5 years earlier were now completely severed. Every major city on Earth had seen protests and panic in the weeks following the blockade's establishment. People demanded answers, demanded action, demanded that their governments do something to break the alien stranglehold around their world. But what could any human government do against a force that included hundreds of ships from species with technology centuries ahead of Earth's? The morning briefing brought more bad news. Admiral Susan Blake, now commanding Earth's Unified Defense Forces, reported that alien patrols had destroyed 3 more human ships that attempted to break through the blockade. The USS Denver, a cargo vessel carrying medical supplies to the Mars colonies, had been vaporized without warning when it approached the outer boundary. No survivors, no negotiation, just instant destruction. "They're not even pretending this is about protection anymore," Admiral Blake said, her voice tight with anger. "Any human ship that gets within 50 million kilometers of the boundary is destroyed on sight. Dr. Richard Hayes, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had spent the past 6 months studying every piece of alien technology and biological data that humanity had collected over the years. His research teams worked around the clock in laboratories, scattered across the globe, racing to understand their enemies better than the aliens understood themselves. "We've made some interesting discoveries," Dr. Hayes reported to the emergency cabinet meeting. "The council species are more vulnerable than they want us to believe. Their reliance on certain technologies creates weaknesses we can exploit. But we need time and resources to develop the necessary countermeasures." What surprised the watching aliens was humanity's response to the crisis. Instead of fragmenting into competing factions or surrendering in despair, the species united like never before in its history. Old rivalries between nations evaporated, as every government recognized that survival depended on cooperation. The United Nations transformed overnight from a debating society into humanity's war government. In the asteroid belt, mining operations expanded at an incredible rate. Engineer Paul Carter had designed revolutionary new extraction systems that could process asteroids faster than anyone thought possible. Automated mining ships swarmed through the belt, gathering raw materials that were immediately shipped to manufacturing centers on Luna and in Earth orbit. The lunar colonies became massive shipyards operating 24 hours a day. Construction teams worked in shifts that never stopped, building vessels with designs that blended human engineering principles with adapted alien technology. The ships looked different from anything humanity had built before, sleeker and more aggressive, designed for war rather than exploration. Most of the new construction happened in the outer system where alien sensors couldn't detect it clearly. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn became secret bases, where humanity's brightest minds worked on projects that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Dr. Hayes had teams studying alien biology to find weaknesses, while other scientists worked on new weapons and defense systems. The blockade aliens initially felt confident in their mission. Their orders were simple: contain humanity until the species weakened from isolation, then move in to claim Earth's resources. The humans were primitive, their technology centuries behind Council standards, and their military forces were tiny compared to galactic powers. But after 6 months of observation, some of the blockade commanders were beginning to have doubts. The energy signatures coming from human industrial centers were increasing rather than decreasing. The asteroid mining operations were expanding instead of contracting. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be building something in the outer system, something big enough to register on long-range sensors but too far away to identify clearly. General Vorth commanded the blockade from his massive battle station positioned near Jupiter's orbit. The Krex military leader had expected the humans to surrender within months, but their behavior puzzled him. Instead of weakening, they appeared to be growing stronger. Intelligence reports suggested that human military recruitment was at record levels, with millions of people volunteering for service. "They should be breaking by now," he told his staff during a briefing. "Food riots, economic collapse, political chaos. That's how primitive species respond to isolation. But these humans are doing something different." The Vorthan scientific teams monitoring Earth's communications were equally confused. Instead of despair and panic, they were detecting massive coordination efforts between human governments, military forces, and scientific institutions. The planet was acting like a single organism responding to a threat, something they had never seen before in a primitive species. Captain Morrison had been given command of one of the new ships coming off the lunar construction lines. The vessel was designated as a deep patrol craft, but everyone who saw it knew it was designed for war. The ship incorporated alien technology in ways that even surprised its human builders, creating capabilities that no one fully understood. Yet his mission was to test the outer edges of the blockade, probing for weaknesses and gathering intelligence about alien ship movements. It was dangerous work, but Morrison had volunteered immediately. The betrayal at the Council station had left him with a burning need to strike back at the species that had played humanity for fools. During one patrol mission, Morrison's ship detected something that made his blood run cold. A massive alien fleet was assembling beyond the blockade, ships from species that weren't part of the enforcement operation. The fleet was too large to be a routine rotation, and its positioning suggested preparation for something bigger than maintaining a blockade. "They're not just containing us," Morrison reported back to Earth Command. "They're preparing for invasion." The report triggered emergency meetings in government centers around the world. Admiral Blake called for immediate acceleration of all military projects, while President Carter authorized the release of humanity's strategic reserves to fund an even more massive military buildup. Dr. Hayes received unlimited resources and authority to develop weapons that could level the technological playing field. His teams had identified specific weaknesses in alien defensive systems, but exploiting those weaknesses would require weapons that humanity had never built before. Binge. Transformation of human society was remarkable to observe. Factories that had produced consumer goods were retooled for military production. Universities became research centers focused on alien technology and xenobiology. Even entertainment changed, with movies, books, and games all focusing on themes of resistance, survival, and eventual victory against impossible odds. But perhaps the most significant change was in the human mindset. The species that had once sought acceptance and friendship from the galactic community now embraced its isolation as an opportunity. If the aliens wanted to treat humanity as dangerous, then humanity would become exactly what they feared. HFY blockade continued, but it was no longer containing a frightened and isolated species. Instead, it was giving humanity time to prepare for a war that the aliens didn't even realize they had started. In the depths of space, human ships moved through the outer system, carrying out missions that would have terrified the blockade commanders if they had known what was being planned. 2 years into the alien blockade, humanity had undergone a transformation that shocked even their own leaders. What had begun as desperate survival measures had evolved into the most ambitious military and technological program in human history. The species that had once begged for acceptance from the galactic community now prepared for war with a determination that frightened those who witnessed it. Commander Alex Murphy walked through the corridors of the new Earth Defense Command Center. Buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the facility stretched for miles underground, housing the combined military leadership of every nation on Earth. The old petty conflicts between countries had disappeared completely, replaced by a singular focus on the alien threat that surrounded their world. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Generals who had once planned against each other now worked together with perfect cooperation. Scientists from rival nations shared their discoveries freely, knowing that humanity's survival depended on their combined efforts. Even former enemies had put aside centuries of hatred to face the greater threat that wanted to destroy them all. Dr. Sarah Kim led the research teams that had achieved breakthrough after breakthrough during the isolation period. Her laboratories, scattered across the globe and throughout the solar system, had cracked the secrets of alien technology in ways that even surprised her. The key had been approaching the problems from a uniquely human perspective, finding solutions that alien minds would never consider. "We've developed communication systems that operate on quantum frequencies the aliens can't detect," she reported to the daily command briefing. "Our ships can now coordinate across the entire solar system without the blockade forces knowing what we're planning." But communications were just the beginning. Dr. Kim's teams had also created weapons that exploited specific weaknesses in alien armor and shielding systems. The breakthrough had come from studying the biological samples that humanity had collected during their diplomatic period. Every species had vulnerabilities, and humans had become experts at finding and exploiting them. Engineer Ben Foster's zero-point energy systems represented perhaps the most significant advancement. The technology provided human ships with power outputs that dwarfed anything in the alien fleets. Combined with Dr. Kim's quantum tunneling drives, human vessels could now appear and disappear from battlefields faster than alien sensors could track them. The shipyards throughout the solar system worked at a pace that would have been impossible before the crisis. Luna's surface was covered with construction facilities that operated continuously, building vessels that incorporated every lesson learned from studying alien technology. The ships that emerged from these yards looked nothing like traditional human designs, sleek and aggressive, purpose-built for war. But the most disturbing development for the watching galaxy was the change in human philosophy. Colonel Maria Santos led the Elite Strike Corps, a military unit that embodied the new human mindset. Where humanity had once sought cooperation and peaceful coexistence, they now embraced their role as the galaxy's newest apex predator. The aliens wanted us to be dangerous, Colonel Santos told her troops during a training exercise. They treated us as a threat when we offered friendship. Now we'll show them what real danger looks like. The Strike Corps trained with an intensity that bordered on fanatical. Every member was a volunteer who had lost someone to the blockade, either directly through the destruction of ships trying to break through, or indirectly through the shortages and economic disruption that followed. Their motivation was personal, and their dedication was absolute. Intelligence reports filtering back to the Galactic Council painted an increasingly alarming picture. The humans weren't just preparing to defend themselves, they were preparing to attack. Massive fleets were being constructed in the outer system, hidden behind the gas giants where alien sensors couldn't get clear readings. The energy signatures suggested ships larger and more powerful than anything humanity had possessed before the blockade. General Vorth reviewed the latest reconnaissance data with growing concern. The Krex commander had expected human resistance to weaken over time, but instead it was growing stronger. Worse, the humans were displaying tactical thinking that impressed even veteran military officers from warrior species. They're conducting live-fire exercises using captured alien technology, his intelligence officer reported. The wreckage from ships destroyed trying to break the blockade has been salvaged and studied. They know our weapons better than we thought possible. The most ominous reports concerned human recruitment and training. Earth's population was volunteering for military service at unprecedented rates. Entire families were joining different branches of the combined defense forces, creating a military structure that encompassed a significant portion of humanity's adult population. Captain Morrison now commanded a squadron of the new stealth ships that had been designated Ghost Squadron. These vessels incorporated phasing technology that allowed them to slip between dimensions, becoming effectively invisible to normal sensors. The technology was based on alien research that humans had somehow improved beyond its original capabilities. During training missions in the outer system, Morrison's squadron practiced tactics that would have been impossible with traditional human ships. They could appear behind enemy formations, strike with devastating precision, then vanish before return fire could be targeted. The aliens had given humanity 3 years to study their technology, and humans had used that time well. President Carter addressed the world on the second anniversary of the blockade's establishment. Her speech was broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system, reaching audiences from the Earth's surface to the mining stations in the Kuiper Belt. 2 years ago, the galaxy tried to cage us, she said, her voice carrying the steel that had emerged in human leadership. They thought isolation would weaken us, that cutting us off from their civilization would force us to surrender. They were wrong. The president's words reflected the new human reality. The species that had once sought acceptance now viewed their isolation as an opportunity. Free from alien influence and expectations, humanity had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. The blockade had forced them to rely entirely on their own resources and ingenuity, and the results had exceeded everyone's expectations. Dr. Hayes continued his biological research, but his focus had shifted from understanding alien species to finding ways to defeat them. His teams had identified specific vulnerabilities in each of the 12 species maintaining the blockade. More importantly, they had developed countermeasures for every known alien weapon system. We know more about them than they know about us, he reported to the command staff. They've been studying humanity for 3 years, but they've been studying the species we were before the blockade. They have no idea what we've become. The preparations were nearly complete. Throughout the solar system, human forces waited for the order to begin the operation that would shatter the blockade and announce humanity's emergence as a galactic power. The aliens had created their own enemy, and that enemy was ready to show the galaxy what happened when humanity was pushed too far. In the depths of space, beyond the range of alien sensors, the largest fleet in human history prepared for the battle that would change everything. The galaxy had betrayed Earth and expected humanity to submit quietly to conquest. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous than they could have imagined, and that creation was about to be unleashed upon an unsuspecting universe. After 3 years of forced isolation, humanity was finally ready to make their move. Operation Redemption began in the darkest hours before dawn, when Captain Tony Rivera led Ghost Squadron through the void toward the Kepler Station blockade point. His 12 stealth ships moved like shadows through space, invisible to alien sensors and undetectable to their scanning arrays. The breakthrough had to succeed. Intelligence reports indicated that the Galactic Council was preparing to move from blockade to invasion within months. Massive reinforcement fleets were assembling in nearby systems, carrying ground troops and orbital bombardment platforms designed to turn Earth into a conquered slave world. Humanity's window for action was closing rapidly. Admiral Blake commanded the operation from the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's new flagship. The vessel was enormous by human standards but incorporated technology that made it faster and more powerful than anything the aliens had seen before. Around the Defiance, nearly 200 human ships waited in attack formation, ready to assault the blockade that had imprisoned their species for 3 years. The alien forces at Kepler Station represented the heaviest concentration of Council ships in the blockade. General Vorth's command vessel anchored the defensive line, surrounded by battle cruisers from 8 different species. The aliens were confident in their superiority, viewing the blockade as routine duty rather than preparation for serious combat. Captain Rivera's Ghost Squadron reached their target zone without detection. The phase shift technology that Dr. Kim's teams had perfected allowed the ships to slip between dimensions, moving through normal space like ghosts. Rivera could see the alien formations on his screens, massive ships bristling with weapons, completely unaware of the human vessels moving among them. "Ghost leader to all units," Rivera whispered into his communicator. "Phase shift in 3-2-1 mark." 12 human ships suddenly materialized in the middle of the alien formation like demons emerging from hell. Before the aliens could react, Ghost Squadron struck with precision that demonstrated 3 years of careful planning. Each ship targeted specific systems on the alien vessels, weapons designed to exploit the exact vulnerabilities that Dr. Hayes had identified. The alien defensive line exploded into chaos, as ships that had seemed invincible moments before found themselves crippled by weapons they couldn't understand. The humans had studied every aspect of Council technology, learning not just how it worked but how to destroy it most efficiently. General Vorth's command center erupted in alarms as his supposedly impenetrable defenses crumbled around him. The human attack was unlike anything in his military experience, demonstrating tactical knowledge and technological capabilities that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. "How are they doing this?" he roared at his tactical officers. "Their ships are appearing inside our formations. Our sensors show nothing, then suddenly they're everywhere." The answer would have terrified him if he had understood it. Humanity had spent 3 years reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they could obtain, then improving it beyond its original specifications. The phase shift drives on Ghost Squadron were based on Vorthon dimensional research, but human engineers had enhanced the technology to levels that even its creators couldn't match. Admiral Blake watched the tactical display as Ghost Squadron's attack created the opening they needed. "All ships execute attack pattern Alpha," she commanded. The human fleet surged forward, emerging from hiding places throughout the outer system where they had waited undetected for months. The aliens found themselves facing technology and tactics they couldn't counter. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking with devastating effectiveness before vanishing again. The weapons that had taken 3 years to develop proved brutally efficient against alien defenses, cutting through shielding and armor like they were made of paper. Lieutenant Commander Kelly Brooks led the bomber squadrons that systematically destroyed alien supply lines and communication networks. Her pilots flew ships that combined human reflexes with alien-derived technology, creating a combination that was nearly unstoppable. The bombers moved through alien formations like deadly dancers, too fast to target and too numerous to stop. But the real shock for the alien forces came when they realized this wasn't humanity's full strength. Long-range sensors detected massive fleets throughout the outer system, ships that dwarfed anything Earth had possessed before the blockade began. The humans had used their isolation not to surrender, but to build the largest military force in their history. The Krex battle station that coordinated the entire blockade became Captain Rivera's primary target. His Ghost Squadron reformed after their initial strike, then focused their combined firepower on the station's command and control systems. The installation that had seemed impregnable was reduced to a crippled wreck in less than an hour. General Vorth found himself trapped aboard a dying station as human forces overwhelmed his defenses. The proud Krex warrior who had expected easy victory was now watching his fleet destroyed by the very species he had helped to cage. The irony was not lost on him as escape pods began launching from his disintegrating command center. The battle raged across multiple star systems as human forces struck blockade positions simultaneously. Every alien commander faced the same impossible situation. Watching their superior technology and numerical advantages rendered meaningless by human tactics and determination. The species they had dismissed as primitive was dismantling their formations with surgical precision. Captain Morrison led a strike force against the outer perimeter defenses, his squadron moving through alien formations like they were standing still. The new human ships could accelerate and maneuver in ways that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about spacecraft design. Morrison's tactical display showed alien vessels trying desperately to target ships that moved faster than their weapons could track. The breakthrough came when the central coordination network collapsed under human attack. Without communication between their various fleets, the alien blockade became a collection of isolated groups facing a coordinated human offensive. Admiral Blake's forces systematically destroyed each pocket of resistance, capturing alien technology, and taking prisoners for intelligence purposes. Dr. Kim monitored the battle from Earth's command center, watching as her technological innovations proved their worth in actual combat. The quantum communication systems allowed perfect coordination between human forces across multiple light years, while the enhanced weapons systems carved through alien defenses like they were built from cardboard. The blockade collapsed in less than 72 hours. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had not only broken a council quarantine, but utterly routed the enforcement fleets. The surviving alien forces retreated in panic, carrying word of humanity's transformation back to their governments. President Carter addressed the world as the last alien ships fled the Sol system. "Today, humanity has proven that we will not be caged," she announced. "The galaxy tried to imprison us and we have broken free. Now they will learn what happens when you corner a species that refuses to surrender." The victory was complete, but it was also just the beginning. Human ships immediately began appearing in systems throughout Council space, no longer as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as conquerors claiming their place through strength. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the species they had tried to contain emerged as their new master. Admiral Blake established humanity's first forward base on the ruins of General Vorth's command station. The facility would serve as a staging point for the next phase of human expansion, a permanent reminder that the galaxy's newest power would not be contained by anyone or anything ever again. 6 months after breaking the blockade, humanity had emerged as the galaxy's new dominant power. The transformation was complete and shocking in its scope. The species that had once begged for acceptance from the Galactic Council now commanded respect through fear and admiration for their technological superiority and military prowess. Admiral Blake stood on the command deck of Terra Station, the facility that had once served as General Vorth's blockade headquarters. The massive installation had been completely rebuilt using human engineering and alien technology, creating a fortress that served as the center of humanity's expanding influence throughout the galaxy. The irony was perfect and intentional. The very station where aliens had coordinated humanity's imprisonment now served as the headquarters for human expansion across Council space. Every species that had participated in the blockade was forced to acknowledge the new reality every time they looked at the transformed facility. President Carter had established humanity's new doctrine during a broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. The message was simple and absolute. Never again would Earth beg for acceptance, and never again would humanity trust alien promises. The galaxy had taught humanity a harsh lesson about the nature of power. and humans had proven to be excellent students. The Galactic Council faced complete collapse as the foundation of their power crumbled beneath them. Half their member species had already switched sides, drawn by humanity's offer of protection and the undeniable reality of human technological superiority. The other half huddled in increasingly isolated clusters, debating whether to surrender or fight a war they could not possibly win. Chancellor Zexthul, who had delivered the betrayal that started everything, now found himself pleading for mercy from the very species he had tried to destroy. The proud Vorthon leader, who had dismissed humanity as too dangerous for civilized society, was reduced to sending desperate messages, offering complete surrender if humans would spare his people. Captain Morrison, promoted to admiral after his success in breaking the blockade, now led humanity's diplomatic corps. The word diplomatic had taken on new meaning in the post-council galaxy. Human diplomacy involved negotiating surrenders and accepting tribute, rather than seeking friendship or cooperation with alien species. The hegemony worlds are requesting terms, Admiral Morrison reported to the daily command briefing. They're offering to turn over their entire fleet and all their advanced technology in exchange for being allowed to maintain local autonomy under human oversight. The requests for surrender arrived daily from species across the galaxy. The same aliens, who had dismissed humanity as primitive, now competed to demonstrate their submission to Earth's growing empire. Fear was a powerful motivator, and the galaxy had learned to fear what humanity could accomplish when pushed beyond their limits. Dr. Clark had been permanently changed by witnessing the betrayal at the council station. The woman who had once sought peaceful coexistence between species was now humanity's foreign minister, and her message to the galaxy was simple. Earth would accept nothing less than total acknowledgement of human supremacy and complete compensation for the 3 years of isolation they had endured. They had their chance for friendship, she told alien delegations who came seeking mercy. They chose betrayal instead. Now they live with the consequences of that choice. The transformation of human society had been remarkable to observe. The crisis had revealed capabilities that the species never knew it possessed. Freed from the need to conform to alien expectations, humanity had embraced its unique characteristics and turned them into overwhelming advantages. Engineer Paul Carter's mining operations now stretched across dozens of star systems, extracting resources with efficiency that amazed even human observers. The automated systems he designed could strip an entire asteroid field in weeks, providing raw materials for the shipyards that continued producing vessels at an incredible rate. Dr. Sarah Kim's research teams had achieved breakthroughs that put human technology decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. The quantum communication networks allowed instant coordination across galactic distances, while the enhanced weapons systems made human ships virtually unstoppable in combat. But perhaps the most significant change was in human philosophy. The ID species that had once valued cooperation and peaceful coexistence now embraced their role as conquerors. The galaxy had tried to teach humanity that only strength mattered, and humans had learned that lesson better than their teachers ever imagined. Colonel Santos's strike corps had evolved into an elite force that served as the enforcement arm of human authority. Her troops were stationed on worlds throughout former Council space, ensuring compliance with human directives and dealing harshly with any signs of resistance. The dissolution of the Galactic Council was formalized in a ceremony aboard Terra Station. Representatives from every species that had participated in humanity's betrayal were required to attend, watching as the institution that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was officially disbanded. In its place, President Carter announced the establishment of the Terran hegemony. Humanity would now provide the leadership that the Council had failed to deliver, bringing order and efficiency to a galaxy that had proven incapable of governing itself effectively. The Council's greatest mistake was not their betrayal of Earth, President Carter announced to the assembled alien delegates. Their greatest mistake was failing to understand that humanity's strength has always been our ability to adapt, overcome, and emerge stronger from every attempt to destroy us. The ceremony concluded with alien representatives formally acknowledging human authority and pledging their species' loyalty to the new order. The beings who had once dismissed humanity as too dangerous for civilized society now bowed before human representatives, accepting their new status as subjects of Earth's expanding empire. Dr. Hayes watched the proceedings with satisfaction. His biological research had identified the weaknesses that made human victory possible, but more importantly, it had revealed the fundamental flaws in alien thinking that led to their downfall. They had underestimated humanity's adaptability and resilience, treating humans like just another primitive species to be manipulated. Captain Rivera's Ghost Squadron had been expanded into an entire fleet division, serving as humanity's rapid response force for dealing with threats throughout the galaxy. The technology that had broken the blockade now ensured that no species could challenge human authority without facing immediate and overwhelming retaliation. The galaxy that had once sought to cage humanity now lived under human rule. Trade routes operated under human supervision, with Earth's commercial interests taking priority over alien concerns. Resource extraction followed human schedules, with the most valuable materials flowing toward human worlds and industries. But the new order was not entirely oppressive. Species that demonstrated genuine loyalty to human authority were rewarded with protection and economic opportunities. The galaxy under human leadership was more stable and prosperous than it had ever been under council rule, even if freedom was now a privilege granted by human generosity rather than a right. As Admiral, Blake looked out at the stars from Terra Station's observation deck. She reflected on how completely the situation had reversed. 3 years earlier, humanity had been desperate for alien acceptance. Now aliens were desperate for human approval. The galaxy had judged humanity and found them wanting, but humans had returned that judgment with interest. The Council's betrayal had awakened something in humanity that perhaps should have remained dormant. But the galaxy had made its choice when it decided to cage Earth's children. Now they lived with the consequences of underestimating a species that had never learned how to surrender, and the verdict was far less merciful than anything humanity had ever sought from them.